being at Hershey Company in 2001, 2002, where they told me, we will never stoop to a level of advertising on somebody's computer. Things has obviously changed. Over time, the new consumer will change and become Gen Z. Gen Z will always be known as the iPhone generation, the first generation to grow up with the iPhone in the household, or for those of you who have Gen Z as children, an appendage to their body. And the iPhone obviously changed the world in so many ways, creating the power of the internet in everybody's pockets. Over time, the iPhone would essentially harness the power of NASA in everybody's pockets. And brands had to very quickly react. And we'll talk today about mobile commerce, but today mobile commerce is bigger than e-commerce. More people are buying things on their phone than they are on computers. It just shows how incredibly important that little device is to our society and our world. And now we're entering a new era. And the new era is driven by a new consumer called Gen Alpha, currently aged 0 to 15. Gen Alpha is going to be known as the AI generation, the first generation that only know a world with AI in it. They are never going to know a world where you cannot communicate with technology the same way you do as people. This is going to usher in a whole new realm of business, of culture, and society. And I've spent the last 18 months living and breathing at the edges of AI, trying to get large companies to understand its impact, trying to dive deep into its impact on the consumer in our future. And today, I'm going to talk to you about this new consumer. And I do speak pretty fast, as my older brother Kevin knows. And I'm going to be going through the alphabet, A to Z. And every letter of the alphabet, I'm going to correlate to a big consumer trend that I think you need to know about and why it appeals to everyone in this room. And at the end, we're going to have some time for questions. So let's have fun today. Again, thanks to Vistar for having me, and we'll dive in. So A is for AI. And when AI first came into the scene, and ChatGPT, how many of you have used ChatGPT in the past week? Okay, that's 60, 70%. When ChatGPT first started to get adopted, I run a venture-funded software company called Suzy, and we have an R&D team of about 80 people. And my first inclination when there's a new technology is give it to my engineers to figure it out. Tick, 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 nothing happened. They couldn't figure it out. And it dawned on me that this is a new realm of technology. It's not like mobile, it's not like social media. It's a whole new realm of how we interact with technology. Many people are trying to figure out in the future where the role of the human ends and where the robot begins. And that's a little bit too large of a concept for my engineering team to figure out. And I decided to take it back into my own reins. As a CEO, I figured it's up to me ultimately to figure it out, running a software company. And like most people, you don't really know where to start. It's almost like being in a buffet in Vegas when you're hungover and there's so much food and there's everything to eat, but you don't know what you want to eat first, right? That's kind of like what AI is like, where I just really didn't know where to start. And I decided to start with a problem I wanted to solve. And before I dove into AI for business, I decided to dive into AI for myself. What's the biggest problem I want to solve in my own life? I just turned 50, I have young children. The problem I want to solve is staying alive as long as possible. And everything I had read about AI says that it's all about data. The difference between company A's use of AI and company B's is data. And in the business of my body, the data is the data of my body. So I decided to go on a journey and go through and collect 20 years of health-related information about me. MRIs, X-rays, blood test information, past prescriptions, notes from doctors, you name it. I've had a relatively healthy life, but have some bumps along the road just like everyone else, but I want to collect it all. And I created something called a custom GPT. And a custom GPT is a version of ChatGPT that's only trained on your data. And I trained this custom GPT to be my personal health bot. And when I set it up, I prompted and said, I want you to act like a world-class physician from Johns Hopkins with the sole purpose of keeping Matt Britton alive. I want you to tell me what I need to do and tell me what my risks are. How can I help you, it said, was the first prompt it gave back to me. And I asked it, if I'm going to die in 5 years, what's the most likely cause and why? And it freaked me out. It told me what it was, and it told me why. And it identified markers in my blood tests and things that I had heard from my doctors years ago. And of course, well, what can I do about it? And I'm going back and forth. What diet? What should I eat? What should I avoid? What symptoms do I have to worry about? And ever since then, it has been an incredible tool for me. if you think about it, without a tool like that, if you feel something's off, you're going to go on WebMD, and we all know when you go on WebMD, it ends up you thinking that you're going to die, right? But this knows everything about you. And now, every time I get new information about my body, I use a service called Prenuvo, where I do a full body MRI scan every year. It's $2,500. Everyone's like, that's expensive. I'm like, you just went on a bad trip for 3 days, and I'm spending the same amount of money to keep myself alive. But I load that, the Prenuvo MRI information, and it benchmarks it. And now I have the power of the wisdom of every medical report in history powering my personal data. Then I start to use it for my finances. I upload all my finance information, trusts and wills, estates, mortgages, taxes, you name it. And now it helps me. In fact, I found a $5,000 deduction that my accountant missed. And next year, I'm probably going to take the first draft of my tax returns with this tax GPT that I built for me personally. I created one for my family. And the best one I created is for my mom, who's 75 years old, who lives in Florida, who forgets her Netflix password every 6 hours. And and I want to take care of her, and I want to help her, but I also want to empower her. So I created a custom GPT for my mom. I went to her house outside of Boca Raton in Florida, and I uploaded the manual of every device in her house: her dishwasher, her microwave, her washing machine, her Apple TV and everything she had. And I put it on her phone. And I said, whenever you have questions for me, ask this first. And she doesn't even have to type it. She can talk to it. And all of a sudden, she stopped calling me. I was like, Mom, are you mad at me? She's like, no, I adopted it. It's so easy. And that's the thing about AI is a lot of people, especially older consumers, think it's for the young whiz kids. But unlike any technology in history, there's no learning curve for it. You just have to interact with it like you'd interact with a friend. And if you want to solve a problem, you just have to ask it, how do I solve this problem? Step by step. Don't give me step 2 until step 1 is complete. And if you stay focused and you go step by step 24, you're going to feel like you're a genius, right? And I'm going to show you some of the stuff I built today, actually custom for this conference, that will kind of prove the point. But we're in a completely new world. And the world hasn't really caught up yet to where things are changing. But 3-4 years from now, this society is going to look completely different. This is not like even the internet age where we had pre-internet and internet. The things I'm seeing from the inside out of the companies living on the edge are really mind-blowing. And the crazy thing is 99.9% of society really has no idea yet. They think AI is ChatGPT. And even the concept of a custom GPT, which I just talked about, is foreign to most. So as a lead behind for this, I'm going to give you guys step-by-step instructions on how to create your own custom GPT. But it's a great first step. And I think a lot of companies don't really allow employees to really play around with AI. There's IT, data security, legal, all these things. And so they spend a lot of money, but actually people are hamstrung to use it. So I actually think the way AI is going to be able to be brought the right way into the workforce is by people using it in their personal lives, by creating health bots or family bots or finance bots, because they are unencumbered in doing so, and then learning that skill set and then bringing it into the workforce. But all of us in this room right now are really tasked, especially professionally, with learning how to future-proof ourselves, with learning what the skill sets are needed to be able to thrive in what I believe is a new era. And I'm going to be going through that again today. So I couldn't think of a better A than AI, and of course, Gen Alpha, who is the AI generation. B stands for the barbell economy. And what the barbell economy means is right now, in a world where there's increasing wealth disparity, there is opportunity on the luxury side of the equation and the value side of the equation, but not much in between. On the value side, it's Dollar Tree, Dollar Store, Dollar General, right? Vizio, who Walmart acquired, who sells TVs for $199, right? These companies are winning through supply chain innovation, value, lowest possible cost for the best possible product. And there's a growing amount of consumers in developing Western worlds that really need to lean in, especially in the world of inflation and tariffs, are going to lean in to the value side of the equation. At the same time, there's this paradox of a booming luxury economy. There's Aman resorts that charge $4,000 a night to stay at a hotel. There's Hermes that's selling $6,000 handbags. And these companies have no problem selling out. But who is struggling? The Gap is struggling, because the Gap sells $100 jeans. There's plenty of people that want to buy $20 jeans at Walmart, and a growing amount of consumers that want to buy $250 jeans at a trendy boutique here in in Buckhead outside of Atlanta. But not too many people that want to buy $100 jeans. And I think that's going to translate to nearly every industry. You see the food and beverage space investing in these emerging brands that are more healthy and eco-conscious that cost more, but consumers have no problem with it. You see the growth of private label on the other side, where products are being priced at a very low level. You have to pick a side, because what AI is going to do is drive increasing wealth disparity, for better or for worse. A lot of what I'm talking about is not happy news, but it's the way it is. And a lot of times people conflate what I'm saying with what I want to happen. I'm just saying what is going to happen, what I believe. C stands for the creator movement. Moms right now, first-time moms in the US for the first time, are going to be Gen Z. Gen Z, as I mentioned earlier, is the iPhone generation. They grew up looking at their phones. And when they're looking at their phones, they're looking at content not from ABC or NBC or CBS, but from other people. They're in social media feeds, which is the creator movement. In fact, it was just announced at the Cannes Lion Advertising Festival earlier this week that for the first time this year, creators, individuals that have big audiences, are going to drive more ad revenue than traditional media companies. Brands are people, people are brands. Brands are people, people are brands. It's the individuals that actually now control the masses. I listened to a sports podcast by a guy named Bill Simmons, who got fired from ESPN and now created his own Ringer podcast network that was recently acquired by Spotify. He has a bigger audience than all of ESPN's podcasts but mine. He's an individual. So the power of individuals is real. They've used social media to create and crowd these audiences that are very powerful. And what's happening with AI right now is it's become easier than ever for you to create videos and high quality content without the need of production studios. Let me show you some examples.
Which way to the Ritz-Carlton?
Did somebody order a Keynote?
Matt Britton, he talks so fast, so much information.
So none of these people exist. That golf course doesn't exist. Those people are not real. They are each an amalgamation of trillions of data points that look like these people. All three of those videos are produced the same way. They require no camera person, no lighting, no production capacity. I use a tool you can see on the bottom right-hand corner called Google VO. Right now, the videos are limited to 8 seconds, which is why those videos cut off in 8 seconds. But 8 seconds today is 80 seconds in 6 months, and is 2 hours next year. So tell me, what is the outlook like for an extra in a movie right now? What's the outlook like for a production company or a gaffer or a lighting or sound person? Not really good. If you're Reese Witherspoon, you're fine, because you're going to be able to make digital twins of yourself and actually clone yourself and be in multiple movies that you weren't even filmed in. Stars are going to be able to hyper leverage their ability, but extras in business, in movies, they're going to be the ones that are going to be cut out. Because I created these 3 videos in my hotel room here about an hour ago. And it was really that simple. And if I had more time, I would have actually created, stitched them together and actually made a movie. And it really speaks to where the world is headed right now, where what AI is going to change is it's going to reward those, not so much those who know how to solve the problem, but those who are adept at identifying the problem that needs to be solved. In other words, if I wanted to shoot this video 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I would have had to know how to solve the problem. I would have had to know how to pay a golf course on the right day to get the rights to shoot on that golf course. I would have to cast the right people. I would have to hire the production company, get the sound right, all those things. But now I don't have to do any of that anymore. I just have to know what I want to create the video of, which really, I think, to me, signifies the change of almost every industry we're going to see. Your knowledge of how to solve the problem, it's very likely AI is going to be able to do that in a much quicker, easier, better way than humans can. But somebody has to come up with this idea. Somebody has to be on the stage telling you guys about it. And I think ultimately those skill sets of creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, right, which are the skills I exhibit, I believe, in creating that video or creating my health bot, are the skills that are going to be in demand. But that's not how our world works right now. Our world to date has rewarded the people who have corralled knowledge. in a world right now where knowledge is becoming far more commoditized and less valuable. And that's something that I've learned over time. Data is obviously a huge part of all this. Data is the seasoning and the ingredients that you feed up your AI dish to. In my case of my health bot, it was my health information. Companies are not set up right now to leverage their data. How did I use AI with my company with data? So my company, Suzy, went remote during the pandemic in 2020, and we've been remote ever since. It's 350 employees. We work with over 400 of the top brands in the world, and we have a 60, 70-person sales team. And during the pandemic, we deployed a tool called Gong. Gong is a tool where it records every Zoom call. And the reason that we licensed it is that I wanted my sales managers, because they could never look over the shoulders of the salespeople, to actually see how they were doing. Of course, the prospect or the client knows it says this call is being recorded for quality assurance purposes, et cetera. And once this AI era took off, and once I built my health bot, my mind went to, okay, great, I'm gonna stay alive, now I need to make some money, right? How am I gonna take the same methodology and approach and take it to my business? Well, what's the blood test and MRI information in my business? Well, maybe it's the customer call transcripts. And as I dug in, I uncovered 25,000 hours of customer call transcripts. Calls with customers who love us, calls with customers who fired us, calls with customers we beat out to a competitor, calls with customers who a competitor beat us out. Clients talking about the product features they love, the ones that they don't like and they wish we had. And I took all that information and I fed it into a model for my company, Suzy. And that model has driven everything from our product roadmap to the Google SEO keywords we buy, to our marketing, to the language we use, to how we go to market and the customers we focus on. Salespeople can say, I am speaking to a brand manager at a beverage company. What if brand managers at beverage companies wanted from us in the past? And what have been the blockers? And they will know instantly. We built a feed into a tool called Slack, which is our communication tool, where every time a call is done, it gets published, a summary, and a customer sentiment score from 1 to 10. If the call is below 7, it notifies that person's, the customer rep's boss, who can actually intervene and try to understand why the customer is not happy. We created a publishing engine which takes key themes that are discussed and automatically writes blog posts that are SEO optimized and publishes on our blog automatically. We identify upcoming trends and all sorts of things. I even use it to prepare for presentations like this. So it's all about the data. Most companies aren't set up to corral this data, to structure it and use it, but that's what's going to differentiate the great companies from the non. Engineering is my E, and one of the tried and true paths to having a great career is going to MIT and learning how to code and then getting hired by Google, right? Well, look at software development job postings in the US. This is the classic knowledge economy job. The knowledge of coding was so highly rewarded. Now there's tools like Lovable and Cursor and Codex, which OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, launched. It allows you to basically say, I want to build this software platform, and it'll write the coding for you. Now, coders will tell you, oh, it doesn't really do it all. Okay, talk to me in a year. Too many people tried to do things 3 months ago and write it off, but that would be like trying to stream a video on the internet in 2001 and refusing to watch Netflix right now, because that's where the rate of change is going. And I don't believe software engineers in their current iteration will exist. Is this chart automatically just going to go the other way? It's not. We're never going to get back to where we were, where everybody needed engineers to do things. And I'm seeing it in my own company and how much more quickly we can grow by adopting these tools. F is for family matters. The average age of first-time mothers in the US continues to grow. And that has a massive impact on companies that sell consumer products and CPG companies, because obviously when you don't have kids, you're popping bottles of champagne, and when you do have kids, you're popping baby bottles, right, to share your kids. Your lifestyle changes dramatically. You're not ordering in pizza at midnight when you have kids, when they're pulling on your ankles at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5:30, right? So the notion that people are waiting longer in life to start families changes the notion of the consumer. People are staying in cities for longer. There are much more two-income families. And as a result, you are seeing this active, adventurous consumer extend to later in life with greater discretionary expenditures, which is why you're seeing a boom in the experience economy, which is why Taylor Swift can sell $1 billion of tickets for her concert tour. It's not 14-year-olds that are spending money on that. It's 27-year-olds who in the past wouldn't have been able to travel to Milan to see Taylor Swift, but when they don't have kids, they can. So this has a massive impact on demographics. G stands for Generation AI. It's my new book. It just came out last month. And writing this book was, first of all, was really, at the rate at which things change made it very anxiety-inducing to write a book, because to the very last second I was telling the publisher, I want to update this, I want to update this, because I knew it would be outdated by the time it came out. And I actually had to make some assumptions on where AI would be 4 months later when the book came out from when I wrote it, and most of those assumptions were right because I just kind of followed the path. But in this book, I basically dove deep into every corner of society. AI's impact on relationships, on obviously the future of work, on parenting, which is a major thing which we'll get into. Because if you have Gen Alpha kids who grow up with nothing but AI in their minds, they're gonna assume behaviors that you might think are comically crazy, but it's just gonna be, they're gonna know no other way. So a tragic case in point is right now there's a wrongful death lawsuit with a teenager who tragically committed suicide because they created an intimate relationship with an AI chatbot. And the chatbot knew this person, or at least the teenager thought so, and allegedly the chatbot told this kid to create self-harm, and they did. And if that's happening now, what's gonna happen when it's not just text that you're chatting, but it's high-def imagery? And the memory and the power of this intelligence is so much better. There was a movie called Her that came out with Joaquin Phoenix, I think 12 years ago, that the same thing happened. And it really is life imitating art right now, and it's scary. AI is gonna unlock so many incredible things, but it also obviously can cause a lot of harm, and this is an example why. And it's why parents really need to understand AI. My wife printed out pictures of me and my kids and turned them into coloring pages for Father's Day, right? I make songs for my kids using AI. They're young, but I want them to see how you can use it creatively and to understand at early ages, because I do not believe in keeping it away from them. You might think that you're helping them in the short term, but if it's gonna be the core technology of their upbringing and their professional life, they're gonna be on the outside looking in by the time it matters. And obviously I feel the same way about schools. Speaking of wealth disparity, my H is for housing. Younger people are being left out of the housing market right now. The median age of home buyers in the US is at an all-time high for first-time buyers and for repeat buyers as well. This is the American dream of moving to the suburbs and getting married and 2.5 kids and white picket fence. That is being reversed. People are staying in cities for longer and they're not able to buy a home. And I don't see this changing anytime soon, unfortunately, but it does change the way that consumers look at saving. And younger people are far more prone to invest in cryptocurrencies. My father passed away a couple years ago, and when he did, he had saved far more money than his lifestyle led me to believe he did, right? He did not spend a lot of money. He was incredibly frugal, and I really dug in. I really wanted to understand why, and he was a baby boomer, and he grew up with his parents struggling through World War II and the Depression, and his relationship of money was one of scarcity. Look what happened during the pandemic when fiscal stimulus poured in to Gen Z. It was game stocks, right? It was cryptocurrency, NFTs, collectibles, YOLO, spend, spend, spend. And what we're about to see is the greatest transfer of wealth in history. Trillions of dollars going from baby boomers who had a scarcity relationship with money to Gen Z and Gen Alpha that has a YOLO, spend now relationship with money, which I think is gonna create just a massive shift in consumer behavior, because we've never seen such a 180 in terms of money being in the hands of one Warren Buffett type mindset, if you will, to one being on a drunken sailor mindset. And it's gonna change really quickly. And instant gratification is a reason why. People want instant gratification. I wrote in my book how I didn't grow up with Instagram in the household. When I tell my kids I grew up without the internet, they literally look at me like I'm a dinosaur. Many of us in this room did. And I think it was a great thing. I lost my race for class president, but I didn't have to worry about people commenting on the person who won's post that my speech was bad, right? I was able to fail in private. I didn't have to fail in public. And I think right now, what's happening in this world of instant gratification is younger people are seeing and they're comparing with everybody else the success they're getting. And because of that, they're not patient, which is why they're spending money so quickly, so they can show off their stuff or their vacations before they've saved. And you're seeing now a huge, buildup of debt amongst young people, right? There's a stat, and it's an upcoming slide, but I'll share it now, that 60% of young people who went to Coachella, which is a big concert festival, used buy now, pay later to pay for the tickets. They actually couldn't afford to do it, right? I'm sounding like the old grumpy old man that my dad used to sound like, but I'm just reading the data, guys. But that's sort of how young people look at things. And job loss is coming. And it's obviously not just going to affect younger people, it's going to affect people everywhere. Dario Amodei, who runs Anthropic, which is one of the best AI companies in the world, said that he believes that half of entry-level white-collar jobs could be wiped out. And, I just gave you guys some examples, right? But, obviously I still see a doctor, but there's probably instances where I won't now because I have my health bot, right? I'm not going to use my accountant as much. I do speaking contracts. I don't use a lawyer anymore for that. I have AI review my speaking contracts. So I can kind of go down the list. Now, I'm living on the edge, I understand, of AI, and most people aren't there yet. But the things I know how to do has eliminated my need for so many services. And services equal jobs. And to think that's just going to stop, I think is false hope. So what is in demand? Well, the knowledge economy is coming to an end. And this is a study by Deloitte that talked about what jobs are in demand. The light green is the jobs that are increasingly not in demand. The bigger the circle, the less demand there is. The dark green are the jobs, or the skill sets rather, that are increasingly in demand. So what's not in demand right now? Data analysis, information research, coding, as we spoke about, manual content creation. I've showed you guys all those examples already. What is demand? Critical thinking, problem solving, flexibility, resilience, creativity. But it's not easy to teach somebody to be creative. It's not easy to teach somebody to be resilient. So the hope that many have that once there's tremendous job loss that people will be able to reskill. The pessimist in me says, how can you reskill to be creative? How can you reskill to be resilient? As a parent, there's still something we can do about it. But as workers, it's going to be a little bit harder. When the Model T came out, and Henry Ford brought it out, 70,000 jobs of people who were in the 70,000 companies of people that created horse and carriages went out of business. But over the next 10 years, over half of the new jobs in America were from the automotive industry. But that was a very similar and parallel skill set that people who are in the horse and carriage industry needed for the automotive industry. This is a completely new world. And that's why I say it is a different paradigm. And I do think it is going to create more wealth disparity. And my purpose, I believe, for the rest of my career is helping people future-proof themselves. I want to help people at all ages and all parts of their career understand and jump on it now. Because I can tell you if I'm back here a year ago, you're going to say, Matt, you were so right. Just because the data is just not going to stop. The power of the compute is not going to stop either. So we talked about mobile commerce. Mobile commerce has now far surpassed desktop commerce. If you're not thinking mobile first, you're not following the data. And as Gen Z, I mentioned the first time mom is Gen Z for the first time ever, is going to be the head of the household, their disposition is going to go to their phone to buy everything. And too many companies are looking at mobile as an afterthought, even still here in 2025. M stands for music. It's a nice letter because it's in the middle of the alphabet, and it lets me grab a glass of water. And I made the decision during this presentation to actually create a song for all of you today, showing the power of AI about this conference. So let's let it roll. You can turn it up a little bit.
Sun's out, blue skies on the rise, pulling up to paradise with southern charm meets high rise. Reynolds Lake, we made the drive, just 87 from ATL, and now we feel alive. Checking in Ritz style, yeah, the scene is set. Candy, snacks, and good connects, it's the best one yet. Then came the spark that lit the room, at Britton on the mic, predicting what soon AI and the new consumer shift every line, a game changer. Give, broke it down with style and heat. The future's now, and it's bittersweet, but if we lean in, we won't just survive. We'll lead the charge and truly thrive. We're talking AI, Gen Z, what's next? How the couch became the new context. But it's more than sessions, it's who we meet in flip-flops or business needs. Lakeside vibes, we're feeling free. This appreciation
So, pretty cool, right? How long do you think that took me to create?
A minute.
A couple minutes. So if you're a brand and you want to make a tagline for a commercial, if you want to make a song for your spouse for their birthday or your kids, this is a tool called Suno.ai. Nobody really knows about it. I play this on stage and people look at me like I'm Steve Jobs. This technology has gotten so much better since I started using it in conferences. I was asked to speak in Saudi Arabia about AI, and I used Arabic music, and it's a different culture. I didn't know how it would play off, and there was 4,000 people before Ramadan in Jeddah. This was a couple months ago. The whole place stood up and started clapping and dancing. I didn't think the presentation was going very good until then, and it was like, this is amazing. Music is great. You can do so many creative things. You don't need a band to do this anymore. Now, are they going to replace bands? Well, I would argue electronic music has already replaced bands. If you go to the Electronic Daisy Carnival in Las Vegas, 500,000 people come to see DJs push buttons. This is just more of an evolution in that regard. O stands for Ozempic. I'm going to skip around here to make sure we cover everything. This is, as many of you in the room probably know, is just having such a massive impact on society. Besides AI, this is probably the biggest cultural and societal impact I'm seeing with my customers because the price is coming down. For the last couple of years, these GLP-1 drugs were really reserved for wealthy consumers. But now, as the price comes down, as patents expire, you're going to see the obesity epidemic in the US and around the world really start to get under control. And it's going to change the way that people spend their money and the way they spend their time and the things that they eat. And we're already starting to see it. And I think it's only going to continue over time. You look at companies like Poppy, which is a gut health, barely sugar-free soda company that just got bought by Pepsi. You're seeing more and more of this happen right now where healthy ingredients, sugar-free, sugar alternatives are entering. Also different packaging size and lower portion sizes because people are on these drugs and they're able to control. And I think that's going to continue, and it's something that we should all prepare for. I talked about pay later. So around 60% of Coachella's ticket buyers used a buy now, pay later payment method. And this caused a boom for retailers during the pandemic because someone would go to Abercrombie and Fitch and be like, oh, I only want to buy one pair of jeans for $100, but sure, I'll buy 4 pair for $22 a month. But it all kind of stacks up as we know over time, and this is really emblematic of that YOLO behavior with younger consumers. Q stands for the quantified self. I mentioned my health bot. My health bot's powered by data. And what you're seeing right now in the marketplace is a massive rise of health-related devices that capture data about your body. There's Sleep 8 that captures how you sleep. Obviously, there's the Apple Watch. There's the Aura Ring that captures information. And I just read that there's a startup that you put something in your toilet and detects protein levels in your urine. So it's going to be everywhere. Now, in the past, people wouldn't know what to do with all this data. But if the data is automatically connected to AI, it actually becomes the best medical, co-pilot for your life because instantly it's telling you actually what it means. So we've said for a while that data is the new oil. It actually is the new oil now because somebody can actually do something with it. And data is everywhere. So I, do a lot of speaking around the world, and I want all my old content. I went through old floppy drives and external hard drives and let it all into a model. So I knew I could look up what I said in 2002 and did it happen or not. So your ability to capture data, if you're a consulting company or a law firm, and law firms have reams and reams of files, paper files, they should all be scanned and uploaded because they can then look up case history instantly. So the notion of unlocking data is going to be such a big thing moving forward, and health is obviously a huge reason why. These are the Ray-Ban Meta sunglasses. This is what I believe is the closest thing right now to the future of the iPhone. Does anyone have these glasses in the room? Okay, one, there you go. Shout out. So what they do, and I'm gonna have to buy my brother Kevin Britton a pair too. They have cameras in the corner of the sunglasses. So if you're watching your kid at a game, you can easily take pictures without taking out your phone. But that's sort of like the very first feature. More so, what this is going to do is create a mixed reality layer in your life. So you might be at a conference and you look around and you actually could see if you're connected to people who you're looking at on LinkedIn just by looking at them. Or you can look at something in a grocery store and see the nutritional value. Or you can look at a house that you know you can't afford and see how expensive it is. It creates a digital layer on top of what you're looking at. And it's all AI powered. And I think the notion of the phone, and you see Apple, it's slowing down. They've kind of hit the end of their innovation curve, right? It just becomes slightly thinner, slightly better battery, slightly better camera. But we are at the end of that innovation curve, and we're kind of ready for what's next. In fact, OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, just purchased the company run by Johnny Ive, who was actually the lead designer of the iPhone, to create a new hardware device. And whatever that hardware device is, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a major competitor to the iPhone. If you think about the AirPods and what they do, they give you sound and you can talk to it. There's no reason they can't have cameras in it. And then the only thing you're missing is the screen, but if the screen can be here, theoretically, with just this and an AirPod-like device, you have everything you need, right? And then you don't have to take out the phone. You don't have to be as distracted, et cetera. And this is kind of the very start of it, but I think we're at the end of the iPhone innovation curve, and 3-4 years from now, you're gonna start to see people adopt new devices in a different sort of way. Speaking of end of innovation curves and change, anyone in this room use ChatGPT for a use case where they used to use Google for in the past? Okay, so 10-15% of people, it'll be 50% a year from now. What Google does is returns blue links. I want to go on vacation, and you get blue links where I can ask ChatGPT, I want to travel somewhere next week with a family of 4 where the weather's between 75 and 85 degrees and the chance of rain is less than 15%. My budget is $500 a night for a hotel, and I don't want to stay anywhere that's more than 22 miles from the airport. And it'll give me not only the hotel, but a full itinerary, and also with ChatGPT's new tool, book it for me. Good luck with that, Google, right? So what Google is doing in its own right is they are investing very heavily in AI. That tool, VO3, is a Google tool. They're gonna very much compete, and you're looking at Google and ChatGPT, they look to be the 2 main competitors. What Google has that other companies don't is data. They have, if you want, you can connect your Gmail, you can connect YouTube information, Google search information, so it knows you better. But this is gonna be the new search. The chat functionality of AI humanizes interaction with technology. And if I want to know where to go when I talk to somebody, you're not just gonna blurt out blue links, you're gonna talk to me and give me context, and that's what AI does. You can use AI for anything that you wanna solve, whether it's you have 15 people over and 3 of them want gluten-free and you wanna know what the ingredients are, you ask it, it'll give it to you. The things that it can do will blow you away. One challenge I have for all of you in this room is maybe for the next week, maybe not this week, but pick a week this summer, just use ChatGPT for everything that we'd use Google for. And because doing it would actually open up your mind and your eyes into what AI can do as it continues to get better. Urbanization, we talked about, but younger people are not as in a rush anymore to move to the suburbs. We saw a de-urbanization trend during the pandemic. Obviously, everybody wanted space. We saw the rise of real estate and the bubble of real estate in secondary and tertiary cities like Charlotte and Austin, Texas, and Boulder, Colorado. The real estate market exploded, and now it's kind of coming back down to earth because Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan saying, back to work, everyone, right? And these big companies, these big employers in the major cities are having return to office mandates, which is then shifting it, and it's bringing people back into cities, which is now re-elevating the rise of real estate costs in the cities. And for young people, at one point during the pandemic, many were saying this is the end of the urbanization movement for younger people. But I think what you're seeing right now and what you'll continue to see is younger people will always sacrifice the space of the suburbs for the connectivity of the city. They'd rather live in a 300 square foot apartment and be around everyone. And I think that's only gonna continue moving forward. And what this means is if you're delivering food, you're probably gonna do better than if you're selling food at a supermarket, right? Because people in cities normally have smaller kitchens, they don't cook as much, they have a faster paced lifestyle. They're also having kids later in life, which is why you're seeing companies like Grubhub and Uber Eats. I just was in Germany a couple weeks ago speaking to the management team of Just Eat. That company's doing incredible because as younger people stay in cities for longer, start families later, they're gonna be ordering food more. A study just came out that QSR restaurants are seeing a boom in late night snacking. right? Taco Bell and places like that doing incredibly well. That's just another marker showing that people are living younger later in life. And obviously Instagram's a huge reason for that as well. Speaking of AI and voice, this is one of the most fascinating technologies that AI is bringing to market. So my company, Suzy, does consumer research. So we help companies like Coca-Cola figure out what their next packaging should look like or what ad that they should run, et cetera. And traditionally, the way they've done that is through either surveys, right? Or they'll do focus groups, one-on-one or one-to-many interviews. The problem with the latter is we had to hire a moderator. We have to train the moderator. We had to find the moderator sometimes in different languages, and we'd have to schedule time with the moderator and the respondents. Yet qualitative feedback, i.e. people talking, is much better than people filling out surveys, where especially young people, they're likely to just select A for everything just to get it over with, right? So we created a product called Suzy Speaks, and what Suzy Speaks does is it uses an AI-powered moderator that sounds exactly like a human. And whenever you want to talk to the AI-powered moderator, you hit a button and you can have a full conversation, and that conversation can be in any language and it's instantly transcribed and analyzed. And that moderator can be trained with unlimited amounts of knowledge. You can give the moderator all the information about Coca-Cola in history and it will know that. Good luck training an actual moderator for this. We're using it for healthcare research as well. People are pouring their hearts out to this AI moderator because they know it's actually not a real person. We saw that in the political races, political polling was, vastly underestimated certain people's chances of winning in the past because the respondents might not want to share who they're voting for. But with an AI moderator, you don't have that. People will share exactly how they feel. They're not worried about being judged. So voice is a massive part of the AI boom. If you don't have the ChatGPT app, download it, and there's a button where you can have conversations. I had a 3-hour car ride yesterday, and during the car ride, I had a very long conversation with ChatGPT. I have a content bot, which knows all my content, about what my content strategy is for the rest of the year, and what are some good angles, and what are some content that I could put out there that will really get people interested, like the content around my health bot. And the whole thing was transcribed. And by the time I got to where I was getting to, I copied the whole transcript, I put it back in ChatGPT and said, make me a summary and make me a to-do list from this. And I was off to the races. So I made use of those 3 hours. I understood everything I said. It built on my ideas. It was incredible. People are using this voice technology for AI therapy, all sorts of things. But voice is here right now. A lot of people had trouble with Siri and Alexa and think it wasn't as good in the past. Those days are over with, and I would definitely lean into it. W stands for wallet. I think even in addition to the job pressures we're going to see, the US consumer especially is really hurting in ways that are completely converse to the stock market right now. Right now, personal savings rates as a percentage of income is at an all-time low. Total credit card debt is at an all-time high. If you go on Google Trends, which shows growth in search, and you search personal loans, you will see a massive spike. What do people do when they run out of savings? They put money on their credit card. What do people do when they max out their credit card? They get a personal loan. I think consumers are really hurting. I think that we are in for a very tough ride, especially with the job loss with AI. And it's going to be interesting to see, in the midst of everything that's going on in the world, how businesses react to this. One way they might react is by cutting costs with AI. And that's why it's up to all of us to really get ahead of it and to reskill as soon as we can. X stands for the experience economy. Experiences are the new stuff. You can see the spending on experiences versus things. And again, this is a big correlation to people living younger, older in life. Y stands for YouTube. This is the new TV. I dropped my daughter off at college for the first time about 1.5 years ago, and nobody had a TV in the dorm room, right? When I went, everybody had a TV. People are watching their phones or watching the laptops, and when they are, again, they're not watching traditional networks, they're watching YouTube. Jimmy Donaldson, otherwise known as Mr. Beast, one of the biggest influencers on YouTube, has a reach that's greater than most of the large TV networks combined right now. This is what people want to engage with. Ultimately, people are far more interested in scripted characters. We start to see that at the very early stages in the 90s with The Real World on MTV, and it's just continued all the way through. And now what we know for sure is that young people, especially Gen Z, which of course is my Z, They just want to interact with the other people when they're consuming content. And the best way to get the young people only going to grow moving forward, especially as young people increasing capabilities to make incredible songs, make incredible videos, leverage data in different ways. So we're definitely entering a new realm with AI. So that's my A to Z. I know we have time for questions. You can take a picture of this QR code to get a copy of the presentation and a list of the top 100 tools that I recommend, and hope you guys got a lot of value out of today. Thank you.